So this is what is supposed to happen, and it has happened now. There are no projects is existing, so it directly gives me that screen. We can keep a breakpoint and see what happens. So it goes through this workflow where it loads the navigation view controller, route view controller, and adds my view controller there. It's pretty much there now. So the next logic that we are going to add is for this one. This launch because we already have a UI navigation controller in place. So let's call the same stuff. Log easy is my project client, my own project. Maybe I'll charge myself. Then on add project, it does create it. So it ideally should have navigated to the other screen, which did not happen right now. For that, let's do something for that now. So we need to start listening to the changes to the realm API or to the realm database whenever we added something. For that, let's do something. Let's go and create. Let's go to the realm manager. This is my project realm manager. I'm just going to add, let's say, a function. Is projects exist, where I'm just checking whether projects are existing or not, because I'm pretty much okay using RxSwift now. I'll just use that here as well. Couple of maybe I think I did last year. I was not pretty much okay with using it, so I just did not use it. So now let me use that here. So here I'm expecting that whenever project exists, I just return the current state of it. So for that, we create an observable for that. And let me use the same stuff, whatever was used earlier. Realm.objects, and I'm just checking for the projects. And because I need to get notified about it, I need to add realm notifications. For that, I'm going to use RxRealm. Let me include that in the project, which is a community-driven library called RxRealm, which will let you use RxSwift. It's a wrapper, Rx realm notification token wrapper in RxSwift. Pretty good, I would say. So you can try that out. So let's include that. So once that's done, compile it once more. So including, now let's include, I hope it's available. Yeah. So include observable dot collection, which is something which comes with RxRealm, which will accept an array of realm result which I'm passing here, and we can always then map to the result set and see whether that result set is empty or not. So whatever we did is we're checking for the collection and map to see if that array is empty or not. If not empty, that means the project is existing. So that's what we are trying to do here. And then we'll subscribe to that change. Whenever there is a change in, let's say if it's empty or something, so is projects exists is what we are listening to. And let's add a dispose back here as well. And we will observe it. On next, we will return this value whether his project is exist or not. And we will only stop listening to the subscriptions when we, let's say, receive something where we know that the project is existing. In that case, we will call the onCompleted. This just to make sure that when there are no projects available, we need to keep listening to the subscriptions until the time any project is newly added or not. That's why as soon as you call onCompleted, this will stop sending the signal. It will stop. This subscriber will stop sending signals back to whoever has subscribed to it. That's the only reason. We're just checking if project is existing. Only then you will call the onCompleted. It's just such some feature that I'm just added here. So is project exist function is available now for use for us. We just go back to app coordinator, which is the one which should receive it. So let me just inject it here where app coordinator is getting created. So let me also have sender manager, project manager, that's it. So we receive that instance here, and wherever we need to listen to it, so this is where we have the conditional steps written. So let's call the self.manager.isProjects exist, and then we will subscribe to that change. So let's projects exist. Error. There's an error if onCompleted gets called. So is projects exist, subscription is complete, maybe disposed here, then disposed back. So whatever we'll do here is, so let's say if is project exists, we call the launch project view controller, else we need to have one more function where we will launch the home screen. Let's say launch home dashboard or something. So in that case, the root view controller will be reset to tab bar controller. So that's the whole idea here. Let me just call that. So now if I just launch the screen, nothing should be shown because I already have a project created, so it'll come to launch home dashboard screen. Let's see that still has some errors. Okay, app delegate needs to send that. So let me just create a manager. That's it. Let's run and see. Crashes. Okay, so we don't have a root view controller set. That's the reason it crashed. So basically it worked fine. All that for the testing sake, whatever we can do now is just do this again. Ideally, I'll not do that because I need to have the tab bar loaded at this point, just to test this out. So see, that's a blank screen, nothing there because it's just loaded the navigation controller. So it's subscribed now. Let's just delete it and see if the things are working again. So you see it's come back to the project screen. So because it's subscribed, you can see that when you add a new project, did not call anything. Okay, the problem here is that we did not retain references, looks like. So when we are adding let's say on this start, we try to launch something here, launch home storyboard. So we are creating a coordinator here which we did not add to the child coordinator. So this is what I'm suspecting right now. Let's do that once more and create the project. No. So that's anyway something which we had to do. I think because there is no navigation defined yet, it's not going through. So whenever this gets called, that means we are on the right track. So initial observer is working, checks for that, and then loads this. So even this is not getting called. So this is where it needs to get called. So we still have the subscription working. So that means we are fine. That means everything is fine. It's just getting hopeless there, but then it was actually working. It's getting called here. It's getting set here. So all that we need to right now is load the tab bars, because project got created and just need to use that here. So even before that, let's get set with the remaining coordinators required. Let's say initially I'm just going to load the tabs coordinator and one of the tab items just to start with, and then we can keep extending the remaining things. So there's my tabs coordinator. It will conform to root view coordinator, same steps, and then root view coordinator, let that be like that right now. Let's import UI kit, and obviously I'll be using RxSwift, so let that be there as well. Then we need a function to start, and I might be returning an observable UI view controller here as well. So that's basic stuff I start with, but here UI view controller will be of type tab bar controller. That's only difference. So let me use tab bar controller dot storyboard. It's already associated with identifier which I had added. So once that's done, I can maybe set some basic properties here for tab bar controller. Like something like a tint color, which I already have. Maybe I'll need what's that I should use here? So it should be primary green. So UI color. I already have these defined in a colors constant. Primary green is my tint color, and I also need a bar tint color which will be black. So that basic stuff is done. I can now return. And I can just stop it from sending any more signals as soon as it returns the tab bar controller. So that's the only thing I'm doing here. And let me just go back to my app coordinator. So this is not what I will need as my root view controller there, because we need to reset it, because now it's a tab bar controller. So in this case we will launch tabs coordinator, instance of that, and just I'll just call the tabs function start function of the tabs coordinator, and I'll subscribe to its even before subscribing, let me map, because I'm sending a UI view controller, so I need to convert it back to a UI tab bar controller or something. That's the type I'm expecting back. So once I have mapped it to that, so that's what I will subscribe to. That's my tab bar controller. Rest of the things not needed. Have the dispose back. So start, map, and then subscribe. This map is just to transform my current type to a different type and then subscribe to that particular type. So that being done, so now as I know that now this is going to return a tab bar controller, I can set the root view controller to the return tab bar controller. That's my current base view controller. Now the next step is to basically create, so I guess this being done, this should ideally show my first screen, looks like, because I've set the tab bar controller. Let's launch and see whether I see a different screen. Just load something. So subscription is also complete, so let's start loading at least one screen at a time. So now I have to create so I have a view controller called logger. That's my first screen, so I'll create a logger coordinator for that. Root view coordinator, same steps. These are just basic templates I'm just creating right now. Might use or not, that depends. At a later point, we don't know. As the tutorial progresses further, you'll get to know that whether we need to use all these or not. But at this point, yeah, definitely child controllers are required, because right now we will start adding the view controllers into its own individual navigation controllers. Let's start with that. Import UIKit and import RxSwift for sure. So the function name is start again. This, of course, this can move to, looks like this can move to the base class, but just for time's sake, I'm just keeping it within each and every functions. So on start, let me add an identifier for each and everything. Let's start with coordinator, the logger view controller. Then I need to load the history view controller. Then I have the project view controller again within the tabs. So that's where the reusability is going to come into picture, and settings view controller. So I have identifiers for all these 4 types. Let me just build it once. So that's okay. Let's create my first logger view controller. So it's within the main storyboard. This log of your controller, return it back. Instead of this observable, you can always go ahead and create a closure or something, a completion block, and then return it back. It's all up to a developer preferences. So let me just continue with this observer.onNext. That's it. So this is basically creating my log of view controllers. Let me go back to where it needs to be used. I have the tab bar controller. So even before using the tab bar controller, let me just create one more coordinator for, already have projects, so I can just use that. So for projects, let me load the coordinators for project. We already have okay, let's start with logger coordinator. And the projects coordinator. And let's create a couple of observables for them. Logger coordinator, logger observable, start function returns an observable. So that's the only thing I'm receiving here. And also for projects, one more observable for that. Projects, which is like projects coordinator start function. Let's combine these two observables. Combine then pass the array of this logger observable and projects observable, and then once that's done, I can always map and get the transformed. You can see that it returns a tuple of UIV controllers. So that will be mapped, and that map I can get back. So I already have a view controller for a navigation controller for a project. Similar thing I can, at least in this case, logger does not require. Logger does require. Okay, let's just see that logger does not require anything as a view controller. So the project anyway needs one. So project navigation controller dot view controllers. So that's the second one out of this. So let me call $0 dot. The second one is added to this view controllers array of this project view controller, and then I can always let me just create an array of tab bar controllers, which will be a collection of UI view controller, which I am using. I'll be using to add it to the tab bar controllers. That's the intention here. So tab bar controller dot view controllers, or tab bar controllers dot append is not assigned. Okay. append sequence. Let's keep that $0. It's index 0 item, and then the second one will be the project navigation controller is what I'll be adding. So that's the second one. So these two added. So that's pretty much it. Let me just restructure it. So all we did is call the individual logger coordinators, logger coordinator, projects coordinator, and then call the start function which return an observable. Using that, we received the view controllers returned by them and then added those to the tab bar controllers. So that's what we will be using here within this whatever tab bar controller. The return tab bar controller will add those view controllers. So append those, and that's my tab bar controllers. That's it. So this should idly add my this should idly launch my home dashboard controller with right now with two view controllers using the coordinator. So we are using coordinators completely here, nothing being done from the individual view controllers or anything, because everything is happening without segue, directly using coordinators. Let's see. Did not load it. You also need to do something here because this is where the coordinators are getting added. Add child view controllers, logger coordinator. We can even extend this to include an array, but we'll do it later. So now it's individual function calls, those are being added. So let's just keep things simple right now. Let's see what's going wrong. Okay, I guess the problem lies here where we are appending things. Maybe that. Let's remove this. Let's see now. Bingo, it works now. See, so we have these two tabs added now, and it shows that earlier added project here. So we can even delete this app and completely rerun it and see what's going on. It loads the project. We have the project name. Added triggers and crashes. Let's see what's going wrong there. All I can think of is that when the other screen is launching, it presents a view which is actually happening from within that view controller right now. Let's say if we go back to, let's say, to project view controller, the dismiss and present launching is happening from within that view controller. So let's move it out and see what goes on there. Like all you need to do is then again create a coordinator for that. Add project coordinator. Again does the same stuff. Root view. We'll just have we'll create the add project view controller. Import that RxSwift. So create the add project view controller. And the controller needs to have a delegate, which we will add right now. So delegation is just to have the control back to the created coordinator. So something triggers in the view controller, it has to be coordinated back to this view controller. So all we are looking at is to move out, to dismiss, and all the other logic out. So we need to have a protocol in our coordinator. Add project coordinator. Let's call it add project coordinator delegate. So what's that which needs to happen on dismiss? We return coordinator which does the release. So this will be implemented by the originating coordinator. So we'll do. Okay, so we will have the delegate added here. So it's basically delegation on dismiss. So on success, what needs to happen, that will be captured here. Let's add it here. We applied on class things. So make it class. So let's say on success, what needs to happen? Let's write that. We'll call the dismiss. Instead of all the listeners, we'll remove that. So the delegate added has to conform to add project delegate, needs to be implemented by the delegate which calls this. Otherwise, it leads to we will do a fatal error there. So instead of this, dismiss, we will just call delegate dot dismiss, pass the same set of things, project ID, message, nothing changes, just that we are delegating whatever we need using this. Let's see what happens here. Just still have some things to do there. Coordinator still needs to implement. So we have the add project delegate. So now this needs to implement that. Add project dialog delegate. Once add project is complete, all we need to do is to remove the child coordinator, which is from here we need to delegate it back using the delegate defined in this. Let's add that. So we'll just call the delegate and then call the onDismiss function, where we'll pass the coordinator, which is this coordinator itself, and then the message. That's the only thing we'll do here. Also, we need to make sure that the uh, the coordinator has this delegate implemented or not. So let's go back and implement this app project coordinator delegate in our app coordinator, because this is where each and every call will happen. So dismiss will be received here, and this is where we will remove the coordinator. So that being done, the dependency is right now removed. So whatever we did right now is to create a add project coordinator, and we will be calling the we'll be calling this and returning the add project coordinator using this. We'll return this view controller. It might tend to feel a little confusing when we are working with it, but once you get comfortable with the structure, it becomes easier. So the project view controller is where we have an add project function. That is where it gets presented. So we need to create a delegate here and give this control back to the coordinator so that the app coordinator can launch or present that screen. So let's do that now. So we need to again create a coordinator. Let's add a protocol within the project view controller, project view coordinator, projects coordinator. So this is where the on add project one needs to happen. Let's create that here. Let's call it delegate. And then let's create one more delegate in the view controller. So this will have a reference here. View delegate. So whatever we have right now here on add, we need to move it out. So let's move out this logic to app coordinator. Again, we need an extension here. App coordinator should implement project coordinator delegate, project view coordinator delegate. So that project, what needs to happen, this is where it needs to present that. So this will not directly be happening like this. We will call the coordinator and get this done. We might again have to make some changes, because this listener and all will not be required anymore. Let's get rid of that. That's something I had written long back, which will not make sense now, so I'm just removing all those. So we need to present it over the root view controller. So that's done here. So now if you can see that launching of the app, the coordinator or the app add project view controller is being delegated to the app coordinator, but this is not the way. We still have to make it in a way that we have launched the add project coordinator to do that. And on add project coordinator start, it need to subscribe to its change, just like how we are doing already. This returns me the view controller, and that's what I'll be using to launch. So I don't have this reference here. All I'll be using is this. So that being done, it should present my view controller, but if you run, it start giving some errors now for obvious reasons, because I am not subscribed to different delegates, so it will start giving me errors. Let's just see what all things we need to do. So it launches, it might give you nothing is happening there. Let's go back, because we are not doing anything on that plus click. So go back to project view controller. First step, yeah, we don't have anything here. Let's do a guard delegate equal to, I think we called it view delegate. Else we say that view delegate is not implemented by coordinator. So the associated, let's call it the associated coordinator, because that's the one which needs to do that. So on add project it should do that. So okay, let's run and see. It should return here. Okay, let's do a fatal error here, because this is something which it needs to conform to. So we got that error now. So let's go back to project coordinator, which needs to do it. Let's call this project view controller dot view delegate equals self. So this has the responsibility to implement that to an extension projects coordinator. Needs to implement project view delegate. And all that it needs is, again, send out the same kind of call to can call the fatal error here, because let's call this the parent coordinator did not implement the view coordinator delegate. Simple as that. If it is not implementing, it should again throw, it should send itself. So let's go back to its originator. Whoever is originating this is app delegate. So what is calling this? Let's say app coordinator is creating an instance of this, so it has to conform to the delegate project view coordinator delegate. self. No, this should not give an error because it's already implementing it, and whatever needs to happen is also included there. So there are two places which we need it. So we have this project coordinator here as well. So looks okay. Maybe we missed out something somewhere. Let's do some cleanup. That looks okay. Now let's start run and see. Shows it nice. So hoping it might crash again because we might have not subscribed to something. One more as expected. So on success, this is my view controller, so its parent has not subscribed. So add project. So we need to go back to add project coordinator, which needs to implement this. So it's creating this add project delegate. So add project coordinator. Where did that crash now? So add project coordinator is subscribing and it's observing. What just went wrong there? So for some strange reason, the app is crashing in simulator, but if I just try to run, let's say in my iPhone, let's look at it. It does not crash. It just works nicely. So I guess pretty much I spent a lot of time wasted mostly on trying to see why it was a crash in simulator, but I will investigate that further and maybe find an answer to that. But then currently it does work fine in the iPhone, where you can see that the transition is happening when the ad is complete. So even that earlier crash where I thought it's more like a problem with the child view controller, the root view controller, when it gets reset, it has an inconsistency. I guess that's one of the reason I need to identify that in the simulator, because it's actually giving me an indication something is going wrong somewhere. It can crash in some other device, but still currently in my iPhone X it does not happen, and it does work. So basically I did show you things where a navigation transition happens, showing a coordinator is used to even show or present a screen and then dismiss it and remove, and that everything, almost everything is covered right now, but still some bits and pieces are pending here and there. And hope you enjoyed this. It was a little longer, but then I think it was thought invoking, or it led to something which where you can start off implementing flow coordinators in your project, I guess. And that's it for the time being right now for this episode. I am coming back with new episodes that is more like a review of many of the new libraries which can be incorporated in your project, which are highly rated, which something similar to how I integrated our Swift in this project. There are so many other libraries which we can use ready made. So that is the topic of interest in the coming tutorials, along with some improvements in how we can use this flow coordinators. And one other big thing which is an announcement is that the introduction of Viper architecture. I've been working in a project using Viper for almost an year now, so I have enough experience which I can share right now using implementing it in a smaller project, maybe something similar to this log easy project which I showed you right now. It'll be interesting when we include that in Viper. Viper is not complex, it's just that it knows what is the responsibility of each and every layer. So it will make sense when you're working in a larger project with so many team members, each one having a clear identification of what are the use cases which needs to be implemented. So it's a different architecture altogether, which I will take up in the future tutorial. So until then, nothing much from me, and thanks a lot for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great week. Bye.